brilliant 34-year-old architect, obsessed with perfection, lives in a world of precise lines and tight deadlines in the heart of São Paulo. Her biggest secret and fear is progressive hearing loss, which she hides from colleagues and clients for fear of being seen as incapable. Her life changes drastically when, during the presentation of a crucial project, she fails to hear a key question from the client, leading to a humiliating mistake and her subsequent dismissal under the pretext of lack of attention to detail. Forced to confront the reality she's tried so hard to ignore, Laura transforms her vulnerability into her greatest weapon. She founds Aura Design, an innovative startup focused on silent architecture, creating acoustically perfect environments to maximize focus and well-being. With her savings at stake, she discovers the market is brutally skeptical, viewing her approach as an expensive and unnecessary niche. Her main obstacle is her former boss, an architecture magnate who now sees her as an insignificant competitor and actively tries to sabotage her attempts to land her first major client. Every closed door and every failed meeting increases the pressure, while the silence in her world grows ever deeper, testing her resilience each day. In a journey that will test the limits of her courage and creativity, Laura will learn that true listening doesn't come from the ears, but from empathy and a deep understanding of space. To save her company and redefine her own value, she needs to win the bid for a tech giant's new campus, a project that will put her in direct conflict with her former mentor. The climax unfolds during the final presentation, where an unexpected technical glitch leaves her completely isolated in silence, forcing her to use her unique perception to communicate her vision in a way no one ever imagined. Laura's world crumbled into a low, indecipherable hum. On stage, under the glare of the spotlights, she saw the client's lips move, but the words were lost somewhere in the vast abyss between him and her. The silence that had been growing inside her head was now an ocean, and she was drowning in plain sight. Laura, at 34, was a symphony of precision. In São Paulo, a city that screamed with millions of voices, she found solace in the silent language of straight lines and perfect angles. As a senior architect at the prestigious firm Vargas Arquitetura, her reputation preceded her. She was brilliant, tireless, and obsessed with perfection. Her projects weren't just buildings, they were meticulously orchestrated experiments with light, space, and, ironically, sound. What no one knew was that this obsession stemmed from a deep fear. A closely guarded secret, progressive sensorineural hearing loss that, day by day, stole a little more of the audible world from her. She became a master of deception, reading lips in meeting rooms, strategically positioning herself to pick up on vibes, and filling in the gaps with sharp intuition. Her mentor and boss, the legendary Ricardo Vargas, saw in her a reflection of his own youthful ambition, praising her attention to detail, without realizing the desperate struggle behind that facade of control. The project for Nexus Corp's new operations center was meant to be her crowning achievement, the final step before becoming a partner. She dedicated months to the proposal, sleepless nights ensuring that every material, every layout, contributed to an environment of productivity and clarity. The final presentation was a mere formality, a victory parade. But fate, with its cruel irony, chose that exact moment to expose her vulnerability. The question, coming from the back of the dark room, was complex. Laura only caught fragments. Energy efficiency, phased implementation, and the acoustic impact. In a panic, she gambled on an answer, focusing on energy efficiency, the part she was most certain she had heard. An awkward silence filled the room when she finished. The client frowned. "Thank you, but my main concern was the acoustic impact on the open-air operating floor." The mistake was public, the humiliation total. Ricardo Vargas's gaze, cold as steel, sealed his fate before a single word was spoken. The dismissal was swift and brutal. In Ricardo's glass-walled office, with the city pulsing below, his words were like sharp blades. "It's not about the mistake, Laura. It's about a fundamental lack of attention to detail." The same phrase he had used to praise her was now her execution sentence. Years of loyalty and exceptional work, undone in an instant. The outside world, which she had once navigated with such care, had become a labyrinth of confusing noises and terrifying silences. In her apartment, the ringing in her ears was her only constant companion. For weeks, despair was her only architect, building walls of isolation around her. It was at the bottom of this pit that a new perception emerged. Forced into silence, she began to hear in a different way. The irritating hum of the refrigerator, the echo of voices in the hallway, the way the afternoon light seemed to have its own silent vibration. What if her condition wasn't a weakness, but a lens, a unique way of perceiving space? The idea of silent architecture was born not as a business concept, but as an act of survival. With her savings and the courage born from a lack of alternatives, she founded Aura Design. Her living room became her office, her mission to create acoustically perfect spaces that promote well-being and focus, transforming the silence of absence into a powerful presence. The market, however, was merciless. Potential clients saw her proposal as an esoteric luxury. Soundproofing. "We have walls," they would say disdainfully. Doors closed, one after another. The situation worsened when Ricardo Vargas learned of her venture. Wounded in his pride, he began to actively sabotage her, using his vast network of contacts to label her as unstable and her idea as the delusion of a failed professional. Each rejection was an echo of his dismissal. Each unanswered phone call deepened the silence in her world. Her hearing continued to deteriorate, and the financial pressure became overwhelming. On one particularly dark night, sitting on the floor of her apartment with a pile of unpaid bills, she almost gave up. That's when she saw the online advertisement. Innovatech, one of the world's largest technology companies, was launching a competition for the design of its new Latin American campus. The theme, the future of focus and well-being. It was a sign, an impossible chance, a David versus Goliath battle, because she knew Vargas Arquitectura would be among the competitors. But it was the only chance she had. Laura threw herself into the Innovatech project with the fury of someone fighting for their life. Her disability became her most powerful tool. While other architects designed with their eyes, she designed with all her other senses. She specified woods that absorbed high-pitched sounds, fabrics that softened echoes, and layouts that guided people through corridors of silence. She didn't design a building, she composed a symphony of tranquility. Her proposal was radical, focused on the human experience of space in a way that no one else considered. Against all odds, Aura Design was selected as one of the 2 finalists. The other, as expected, was Vargas Arquitectura. The final showdown would take place in the Innovatech auditorium, in front of the entire board. On the day of the presentation, Laura took to the stage, feeling the weight of the journey on her shoulders. She began to speak, her voice calm and confident, while images of her visionary project appeared on the giant screen behind her. She was halfway through her explanation of spatial clarity when a sharp crack echoed through the speakers, followed by absolute silence. The sound system had died. A murmur of panic swept through the audience. The technicians gestured frantically. In the front row, Laura saw a subtle smile form on Ricardo's face. For him, it was the poetic end. But for Laura, who already inhabited that world, nothing had changed. She stopped, took a deep breath, and walked to the large physical model of her project in the center of the stage. Setting aside the useless microphone, she invited the judges to approach. Without saying a word, she began her silent presentation. She guided their hands over the textures of the materials, showing how the cork absorbed sound and how the felt created warmth. With a laser pointer, she traced the paths of natural light and the flows of movement that avoided interruptions. Using large cards with keywords, whisper, focus, calm, she communicated the soul of her project. It was no longer a presentation, it was a shared meditation. She wasn't selling a project, she was offering an experience. The silence in the auditorium was no longer a technical problem, it was the central theme. When it ended, the quiet lingered for a long moment before being broken by thunderous applause. Ricardo's presentation, which followed, with its flawless graphs and corporate jargon, seemed noisy and empty in comparison. 3 years later, the Innovatech campus was not just a building but a landmark. Architecture magazines celebrated it as a revolution in corporate design, and silent architecture became one of the industry's most innovative and respected fields. Aura design flourished, transforming from a one-woman startup into a world-renowned boutique firm known for its profoundly human approach to design. Laura, now an acclaimed figure, openly wore her hearing aids, not as a symbol of disability, but as a testament to her unique perspective. At an industry awards ceremony, she met Ricardo. He looked older, his aura of invincibility diminished. He approached, and with palpable reluctance said, "Congratulations, Laura. What you've built is remarkable." It wasn't an apology, but it was recognition. The closing of a painful cycle. Later, walking through the central atrium of the campus she designed, a space of profound beauty and tranquility, Laura paused. She watched the people working, conversing in soft tones, moving with calm purpose. The silence was no longer a void to be feared, but a canvas rich in possibilities. She finally understood that her greatest perceived weakness had been the foundation of her truest strength. She didn't need to hear the world to understand it. She needed to feel it. And in the silence, she had taught the world to do the same. Subscribe to the channel now and discover moving stories that inspire, touch, and spark deep reflection. Turn on notifications to follow each new story and become part of a community that values real and touching narratives. Your participation strengthens this space and encourages the creation of increasingly engaging content. Join today and experience each story to the fullest.